In recent decades, millions of people have drifted away from Jesus and their Catholic faith. Sadly, many may never find their way back. I'm Tom Peterson, and I believe that God has called me to use my background in media to be a catalyst in the new evangelization. Our organization produces inspiring and creative evangelization messages that have helped lead hundreds of thousands of inactive Catholics, converts, agnostics, and atheists home to Jesus and His Holy Church. Join us as we travel across North America to bring you stories of heartbreak, redemption, and transformation as the Holy Spirit leads His people home. God has an extraordinary plan for each of our lives. He wants us to spend eternity in heaven with Him and bring as many people with us as possible. This is Catholics Come Home. Now, I welcome you to my home to hear their amazing stories. Welcome to Catholics Come Home. In this episode, we'll meet a man from Atlanta, Georgia, who was raised Baptist and later became Episcopalian. This Vanderbilt University political science graduate later studied law at Emory University before entering Virginia Theological Seminary and becoming an Episcopal priest. But through the years, Jesus kept calling this Protestant home to His holy Catholic Church. Like everyone else in this series, today's guest came home to the church by responding to a call of the Holy Spirit. I'd like you to meet Father David Dye. Father Dye, welcome to our home and welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
Everyone loves to hear about our guest's childhood, where they grew up, their faith background, something about your family in your early years. So let's start there. Tell us about your childhood.
Well, I grew up here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I grew up actually in a very, loving, wonderful family. My mother and father, brothers and sisters.
Southern roots?
Southern roots, yeah. My family's been in the South since the Revolutionary War, so a long time.
Yeah.
And just had, I think, an incredibly wonderful childhood. We were a religious family. We were Southern Baptists. So not only did we go to church on Sunday, but we also went on Sunday evening.
Wow.
And
double dip the same day.
Wednesday evening.
Oh, of course. You were good Southern Baptists.
We were very good. My father was actually a deacon in the Baptist church. I love the Baptist church. I still do.
Yeah. What are some of the faith traditions your parents had, other than going twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday, that you remember as a child?
Well, obviously, a prayer at home, but I wouldn't necessarily say we were, had like daily prayer meetings in the house.
Right.
But prayer was very much part of what we were taught, and grace before meals. The other thing about the Baptist church that's very, very strong is it's very, very Bible based. So I learned a lot about the scriptures, the Bible, growing up. I remember vividly, we used to have what was called sword drills, where the leader would announce a Bible book and chapter and verse, and the first person to find the verse and read the verse won the sword drill. You had your sword, which is the Bible, and you drew the sword, opened your sword, found the
How did you
passage.
do at that particular exercise?
I was always first. In fact, nobody ever wanted to compete against me, so I was already earmarked for the priesthood at that point in time.
That's way cool. Brothers and sisters growing up?
Yes, I have two brothers. I'm the oldest, and then the baby of the family is a sister.
Nice. And what did your mom and dad do for a living?
My father was a businessman, an executive with Dillard Paper Company, which is a big paper company in Atlanta. It's been sold now to International Paper, but
huge.
And my mother was had been a secretary and had worked some when we were growing up, but by and large was a stay-at-home mother.
Good for her. God bless her. Where did you go to school, and what did you study?
Well, I started out in grammar school at Home Park School, which is near Georgia Tech, which is now a condominium complex. Then I went to high school, Northside High School in Atlanta, and I went to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee.
Sure. What did you study?
I studied political science and English literature.
Oh, Okay, and was that the end of your college studies?
That was the end of my college studies, but I went to law school
good for
after
you.
college. Went to Emory University School of Law.
Fine school.
And while I was at Emory, I started working with Father Austin Ford in a poor black neighborhood.
Is he a Catholic priest,
He
Episcopal
was an
priest?
Episcopalian priest.
Uh-huh.
He had moved into that neighborhood in 1968, which was a time when that was highly unusual, to say the least, and a very brand new kind of work. And it was at that point that I felt called to the priesthood in the Episcopal Church and became a seminarian from Emmaus House. I went to law and left law school at the end of 2 years.
And where did you study to be an Episcopal priest? And was it the social justice and serving the poor in that poor black neighborhood that really called you to that life of service?
By and large, yes, that was probably the main thrust, because that was something very big going on at the moment. I mean, you know, the civil rights movement and Dr. King, and that was a very big part of it. I don't think I was as much a communist as my father thought I was. I mean, I really was not, you know, particularly politically motivated, but more religiously motivated.
It was your heart calling you to it.
Even at that point.
Yeah.
I had already, you know, I had become an Episcopalian. I grew up Southern Baptist, but I became an Episcopalian probably because of my experience with the Episcopal Church and its liturgy, and kind of discovered the whole Catholic side of Christian faith.
Through friends or?
Through friends, I went to the Episcopal Church. I'd never been to the liturgy, the Holy Communion, the Mass in the Episcopal Church is almost exactly the same as in the Catholic Church. So I had never seen that.
We know where they got it from.
Well, exactly.
But you liked that. That spoke to your heart. You liked the liturgy.
Well, not at first, because I was kind of going, what is this all about? You know,
It was
I've never
unique
seen
for a
anything like
Baptist,
that.
sure.
But it was very beautiful, very reverent, full of richness and meaning. And I couldn't find anything that I thought was horrible, because I had been brought up to think that, you know, Catholics were really pretty weird. And they were weird because my great-grandmother had died a Catholic because her two grandsons, whose father was from Chicago,
there you go, my own
had converted
hometown.
converted her in her old age. And she, when she died, her funeral was at Sacred Heart Church downtown.
Good for her.
And her deceased body and two nuns and the priest were the only Catholics there. There were probably 800 people in the congregation who
But you had 25% Catholic DNA in you, whether you admitted it or not.
I know. What can you do? You know,
so you went to seminary. Where'd you go to seminary, and what was that like?
I went to Virginia Theological Seminary, officially known as the Protestant Episcopal Theological Seminary in Virginia.
Wow.
I was rather high church at that point, so the Episcopal bishop, I think he thought he would tone me down a notch or two and send me to the Protestant Episcopal Theological Seminary, which is the lowest of the Episcopal seminary.
And were they pretty open, or were they kind of anti-Catholic during that theological training?
Episcopalians in general are very, very open, but not really to Catholicism. It's still Protestant.
To everything but Catholicism,
not to
right?
Catholicism. When I was at seminary, as I said, I had worked with Father Austin Ford, who was pretty much very Catholic Episcopalian, and there were two nuns who worked. One of the nuns became my mentor to me.
I see.
And I used to give her a ride from Emory University to Emmaus House.
So you had great mentors who had opened that thought about Catholicism.
They let me explore things about the Catholic faith that I didn't understand, and you know, I really got a great explanation of, you know, what it was to be Catholic, and also I really began to see the Episcopal Church as it was the via media for me. As I said, you know, my father already thought I was a communist. If I'd become a Catholic, I'd probably have been disowned by my family. So I became an Episcopalian, living the myth that I could be an Anglo-Catholic.
Next, you'll hear what drew Father Dye deeper into the Catholic faith.
Of course, I arrived in Rome at like 7 o'clock in the morning and went straight to St. Peter's.
Of course.
And just felt the incredible power of the tomb of Peter and the center of the Christian world.
We all know children have a natural innocence and a sense of wonder. Yet our world is full of distractions that can pull families in the wrong direction. But with the help of God and a church family, your children can grow in the security of faith, hope, and love. Weekly Mass provides that critical faith foundation needed in life. So if your family hasn't been to Mass in a while, we'd like to invite you home. Discover more at CatholicsComeHome.org.
Father Dye, at this point, you had converted from being a Baptist to being Episcopal. You're in Virginia Theological Seminary and graduated and became an Episcopal priest.
Exactly.
Where did life take you then?
Yes, I came back to Atlanta to be an associate with the Episcopal priest who was in charge of the parish, St. Bede's Parish near North Lake Mall in Atlanta. And then, I married when I was, after about 3 months after I was
And you didn't
ordained.
marry just a boring American girl, you married somebody from overseas, didn't you?
Yeah, my wife is French, so yes. She had been brought up Catholic. That's significant, I think.
Wow.
But she had converted, become an Episcopalian.
Because of you?
Because of me, to be at my side.
Shame on you.
I know. I've always felt a bit sad for that, except, she was following me, so.
Understood. That's what love does. So did you stay in the U.S. or did you travel and
We
serve
stayed
abroad?
in the U.S., but then after about 2 years of being married, we were asked to be Episcopalian priests on the staff of an Anglican church in Brussels, Belgium.
Wow, that's
So
exciting.
we took off for Brussels and were there for 4.5 years.
Wow. So that's the end of your story. You're Episcopal priest, married in Brussels, Belgium, nothing else, or is there some interesting twist coming up?
Came back to the United States from Belgium. So much had gone on in the United States in the years from 74 to 78.
Yeah.
That it was rather amazing. I remember being completely flabbergasted. Nobody was walking anywhere. They were all jogging.
Yeah.
Jogging had become a big deal thing, and so you would see all these people jogging up and down the road. Of course, nobody ever, walked anywhere. I realized I would go to the shopping mall and park as close as possible so I wouldn't have to walk. And what a contrast that is to Europe, where you really walk
Everywhere.
everywhere. But also a lot of other things had been, a lot of social changes had taken place. People had suddenly become very interesting. In the Episcopal Church, the question of ordination of women came up, and I was very, actually, pretty much in favor of ordination of women.
Oh, you were at the time? Wow.
I thought, well, why not? Yeah, women are just as good as men. So I began, though, to think about it, and lots of things began to happen that, I went like, but this is not just a matter of equality. This is a matter of something else. And you don't have to be a priest in order to be equal to somebody who's a priest.
So it made you think, didn't it? At first it sounded okay, but
Sounded
when you
like a
dug
good
deeper,
idea, but it got
you started
complicated.
realizing that it may not be what
It
God
got very
wants.
complicated. In fact, when they were electing a new bishop in the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta, one of the requirements was that the new bishop would have to support the tradition of ordaining women as priests.
Wow.
And I went, a tradition? This has only been going on for a year. And it's like, that's not a tradition. That's a new thing. And while you might want him to support this new thing or whatever, to call it a tradition is
After 1 year.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't make
So
any
did
sense.
the changes in the Protestant world and in the Episcopal Church specifically, and some of your exposure to Catholicism in the past get you thinking about possibly becoming
Well, as I
Catholic?
said, I was already very, very Catholic-minded. So, I began to say, who says you can do stuff? Like, who says I can say the Mass? And who says I'm a priest? I mean, on what basis do I really make
the authority.
The authority of the Church, absolutely.
One of the legs of the pillar.
Absolutely, began to question the authority, and of course, you begin to feel a little stupid as an Episcopalian because you realize that it's the church founded by Henry VIII, so you kind of go like, wait a minute.
Who kind of
This is a
killed
little bit
people
strange from
and
the beginning. I mean, you do have to ask some questions about that, which a lot of people like to just say that's of no significance whatsoever, but it is.
So I have a question for you as a former Episcopal priest, and I asked this to an Anglican, and I said, did you ever know about St. Thomas More and King Henry VIII and his wife and how all these people ended up dead and they started a church? What do you, he said, well, we just don't think about that.
Well, we really emphasized the fact that the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church was the Catholic Church of England, that there were still Catholics in England, that the bishops really didn't change. The only thing you didn't have was the Pope. I mean, we still had, there as an Episcopalian, High Church Episcopalian, you had confession, you had devotion to the Blessed Mother, you could pray the Rosary. I mean, you could be very, very
So
high.
that's what you talked about, but the kind of the crazy foundation of the church with murders and all, you kind of pushed off to the side and didn't talk about it.
Well, you know, you're living with people who are, you know, and you're associating with people who don't believe exactly the same as you, but that's not unusual, is it?
Right,
We
yeah.
do that every day even. Right. So that was, you know, it was difficult to justify, but it was partly, well, you stay because, you know, eventually everybody will come back to Rome and be Catholic again. And so you began, but then that began to be harder and harder to live. I mean, they began to consecrate women as bishops, and began to do things that were really outside the teachings of traditional teachings of the church. And so it begins to become so confused that you go, well, I can stay in this, but I can't bring my children up in this.
And I know so many Protestants will tell me, whether they were Methodist, Episcopal, whatever, that they would have meetings and vote. Okay, abortion is now okay in our church. Okay, homosexuality and practice of that are now openly okay in our church. Did those sort of social issues and deep moral teachings begin to bother you?
Oh, tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, not original in the beginning. You know, you sort of go like, well, I understand people have difficulties and you want to solve the difficulties, but when the solutions become so incredibly hard to swallow, hard to take, hard
And again,
to live
no
with.
authority for those changes, no tradition.
Well, the authority becomes the individual's preferences and his personal satisfaction.
Right. So what was the catalyst that said, you know what, I need to become a Catholic priest?
Well, I began to, you know, try to figure out how I was going to live with that, you know, how I was going to manage, and I was an Episcopalian priest. What do you do? I mean, I was ordained. This was my work. This was my job. This is the living for my family. I mean, I'm a pretty gifted person. I probably could have said, well, you know, goodbye priesthood, and left and got a job in the secular world.
Right.
Somehow I didn't want to leave the Episcopalians, and I didn't, you know, leave the parishioners high and dry, and I didn't want to leave the church because I had committed to the church.
So did you call Marcus Grode of Coming Home Network and ask him?
No, Marcus didn't exist at that point. I mean, this is really in 1970, this is in the early 80s.
So you didn't know about him yet?
No.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was so distressed, I found myself in Europe visiting family. And that got old with your mother-in-law, so I left for a while and went on a trip, got on a train, went to Rome. And this was my first trip to Rome, and of course I arrived in Rome like 7 o'clock in the morning and went straight to St. Peter's.
Of course.
And, you know, just felt the incredible power of the tomb of Peter and the center of the Christian world, the foundation.
You felt at home?
I felt at home. I mean, you know, talking about coming home, I did go home. I went to Rome. I remember I was you know, totally awash in tears, wondering what I was going to do, but so overjoyed to find the tomb of Peter. I mean, it's just amazing. Left that visit, went back home, went back to Atlanta, and still wondering what I was going to do. And then opened the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and read an article that was about this big.
Yes.
This is a small little article. It says Pope John Paul II has proclaimed a pastoral provision whereas Episcopalian Anglican priests can apply to be ordained as Catholic priests as a married person.
Talk about timing.
That's about all it said.
That's all you needed.
I mean, there again, it was just most earth. I still remember seeing the article and being so incredibly moved.
So how long after that did you?
Well, it didn't
take to
happen
become
right
a
away
priest?
because I had to begin to tell my wife
Yeah.
that I was going to become, I was thinking of becoming a Catholic.
And with her
priest.
Catholic roots, was she all in favor of it, or a little?
No,
hesitant?
she had some doubts, and this, you know,
And this was your living. I mean, you were making your livelihood as an
Well,
Episcopal
exactly. I
priest.
mean, even say what makes you think it's ever really going to happen just because the Pope
Oh,
says it, you know,
yeah,
and what
I
you know.
understand.
This
She
is
was a
gonna be-
realist.
Well, and it's not, you know, as a married Catholic priest, you're kind of like a sore thumb. You know, you're really kind of unique.
Yeah.
And it's not me that's a sore thumb; it's my wife.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she's the one
Understood.
who's, you know. people would say to her, well, if he becomes a Catholic, what is he going to do with you? Are you going to a convent? Of course, my wife, if you know her, she isn't going to a convent.
I know you
First
are.
of all, if she went to a convent, they wouldn't keep her. Yeah. So
nothing against her, nothing against the convent, just not meant to be.
It's just the reality. I mean, that happens all the time. Good people get turned down.
So you eventually became a Catholic priest, and you and your wife discerned that was a route for you. Where did life take you then?
Well, I was the chaplain at Georgia State University for about 4 years.
That was your first assignment?
That was my first assignment. Ordained, and it was even before I was ordained, I was the lay Catholic minister, chaplain at the university. Then I was ordained a priest, so became the priest there as well. Then in 1996, I was asked to work on the Olympics when it came to Atlantis, be the Catholic person that coordinated with the Olympic Committee about it.
Wonderful.
And that was an amazing
That's through your
experience.
athletic prowess, not
Yes,
necessarily
because I'm
walking
such
far
a-
in the
yes,
parking
absolutely,
lot, but
absolutely. You know, it is because of my incredible
Go
knowledge
figure.
of
God has an irony, doesn't
sports
he?
statistics and everything. Enjoyed that very much, but then the minute that was over, I was assigned to Mary Our Queen Catholic Mission at the time.
in Norcross.
Yeah, and I spent the rest of my Catholic ministry, which is 25, going on 26 years at this point in time. I was an Episcopalian priest for 17 years, Catholic priest now for 26, so I kind of made up a little bit for lost time.
In our final segment, you'll hear what's new in Father Dye's life today.
I probably wear my Catholicism on my sleeve more than most people. I'm proud to tell people I'm Catholic. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I chose it. It wasn't inflicted on me in any way.
There's a way of life where simplicity brings joy and humility leads to happiness, where we learn that less is more, and in giving, we receive. It's our refuge from chaos and light to guide us through darkness. It's a place where the broken receive healing and repentant hearts find mercy. Here, our days are set free from anxiety and addictions, and our nights rest with more peace. So, where is this hope, and who knows the way? Our hope rests in Jesus, and His church leads the way. If you're longing to fill an emptiness or seeking a way home, we invite you to experience the peace that only comes from God. We are Catholic. Welcome home.
Father Dye, God called you and your wife home to the Catholic faith, assigned you to a parish in Norcross, Georgia called Mary Our Queen. Tell us a little bit about Mary's role in your priesthood and how God has used you over the last few years of your priesthood before you retired, specifically to help converts.
Well, for one thing, my wife is being brought up Roman Catholic, had a great devotion to the Blessed Mother. And several times as parents, when all else seemed to fail, either they were pretty ill or had an accident or some other kind of crisis, the Blessed Mother became very, very important intercessor for us. So that was, that was an incredible thing. I was very pleased to go to Mary Our Queen.
Oh, providential.
Well, man, after you're a convert to the Catholic Church, I mean, I probably wear my Catholicism on my sleeve more than most people. I'm proud to tell people I'm Catholic. I'm not ashamed of it at all.
No.
I chose it. It wasn't inflicted on me.
Praise God. And converts sometimes make the most zealous Catholics.
Well, a lot of Catholics are really, and I'm sort of appalled. They're kind of embarrassed to be Catholics. I cannot abide that.
Doesn't make sense.
So I love to tell my Protestant family I'm at Mary Our Queen Catholic Church.
And God has used you specifically to help converts into the church, hasn't He?
Absolutely. I think, I have a huge family in Atlanta, about 200 people, so they're all Protestants. So I've done, almost all. So I think I've had a wonderful opportunity to show them that Catholics and Catholic priests are normal Christian human beings. And with others who have been following the same path.
Yeah, and you're being humble, but I know your history. You've helped so many people into the Catholic Church, and we praise God for that. Father Dye, we're so glad God called you home. We're so glad that you're a Catholic priest. Thank you for all your years of service to the church, and welcome home.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Many of us know the third commandment given by God to Moses: remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Exodus 20. Unfortunately, knowing the commandment doesn't mean it is well practiced. Full schedules, sports events and TV, open restaurants and shopping malls, and a general cultural habit of working too much and playing too little makes it easy to let Sundays pass us by as just another day of the week. But it is not just another day of the week. Here are 3 simple steps to help you honor the Lord's Day. First, prioritize Mass. Plan your whole day around the Mass, making it the high point of your Sunday. Read the readings before you go, dress up, linger to pray, enjoy fellowship after the liturgy, and discuss and reflect on what you got out of the Mass. Second, minimize distractions. Don't allow errands, shopping, chores, overconsumption of media, and other distractions to hijack your Sunday, leaving you little time for the things that restore your peace and help you reconnect with God and family. Finally, plan rejuvenating, fun, and restful activities. Go for a day trip, read for pleasure, take a nap, watch a movie as a family, spend time outdoors, read the Bible, celebrate a feast day with a craft or food related to the feast, say a family rosary, or visit a distant or sick friend or relative. Do a volunteer ministry activity at your parish or in the community. In his book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, Joseph Pieper writes, "The ability to be at leisure is one of the basic powers of the human soul." Make a plan to ensure that Sunday is the day you rediscover leisure and reconnect with the God who made you for rest, who wants you to harness this beautiful power of your soul.
Here's your chance to get active in the new evangelization. Visit the CatholicsComeHome.org website and click on the Shop tab. Here, you can order a Catholics Come Home book, evangelization cards, a DVD of the Evangelisals, or a car magnet. If you or someone you know has come home to the church thanks in part to Catholics Come Home, let us know. Or if you have a comment, question, or want to support our mission, email us at info@catholicscomehome.org or write to us at Catholics Come Home, P.O. Box 1802, Roswell, Georgia 30077. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. David Dye grew up Baptist in Atlanta, Georgia. Following his university and law school studies, he would become an Episcopal priest, marry, and start a family, and soon would serve a parish in Brussels, Belgium. But Father Dye's quest for truth, devotion to prayer, and diligent studies drew him home to Jesus' church, and Father Dye then became a holy Catholic priest. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Catholics Come Home. Please keep Father Dye and his family in your prayers. Remember to fulfill your role in the new evangelization and help love somebody to heaven.
I've got to love somebody to heaven. I've got to love somebody to heaven.